Welcome to a new edition of the Telecoms files. This time I would like to discuss with you what I call death by pilots, and particularly in relation to broadband networks. What I mean by that is that for the last decade and perhaps even longer we have said that, hey, if we start looking at telecommunications, there are lots of very interesting applications in relation to healthcare, education, etc. that could be delivered over these sort of services. So for the last 10 years and even longer we've had pilots and all sorts of projects whereby we tested, if you can do that, when you had 100 customers or 500 customers and you had a particular application, delivered it by the mobile phone or by the fixed network, by internet, etc., etc. Yeah, and then in the end we all come to the conclusion, yes, it's a great application, but then every single pilot stops because there's no mass deployment of any of these applications that we've tested now for the last 10-15 years. If you look at micropayments, that might beat everything, that was piloted by MasterCard and Visa back in the early 1980s, yeah, and even perhaps as long back as the late 1970s. Now, 30 years later, we still don't have proper micropayment sort of facilities on the internet. The only one perhaps is PayPal, and there are some others, but the banks and the financial institutions are lagging behind. So what you now really need is that decision-making power and say, okay, let's now go to the next step. Now, obviously, infrastructure has something to do with that. You have to have the right infrastructure, and particularly if you look at healthcare and education. And quite often they came to the conclusion, yes, the application works, but it's far too costly to deliver that services over the telecommunications networks as they are at this particular point in time. Basically meaning vertical integrated networks. You have to go to the telco and they have to do it, and they charge you anywhere between 15-20% plus on return on investment on their infrastructure, and that makes these services far too expensive. So true, there is absolutely an issue regarding access to infrastructure that has to be affordable, but on the other side we also have to start biting the bullet and actually start deploying some real big services. I think the Smart City, Smart Grid project in Australia is a good demonstration model whereby you actually start seeing 10,000 households being connected to smart infrastructure in this respect. I think that sort of projects need to be taken forward. At the same time, the Australian government has indicated that this will actually be the blueprint for the rollout of similar sort of smart grid and smart infrastructure throughout the country. That's the sort of initiatives we need in order to stop the death by pilot sort of syndrome that we've been looking at for the last 10 years and beyond. I hope that you enjoyed this edition from the Telecoms files. As always, I'm interested in your feedback on issues like this. Thank you very much for listening to me, and see you next time. Okay, bye.